and First Lady Melania Trump, accompanied by their majesties, King Charles III and Queen Camilla. Thank you very much, please. This is a great honor, and we welcome their majesties. King Charles III and Queen Camilla of the United Kingdom to the White House. Very special place, very, very special. And I also want to, before we really begin, I want to congratulate Charles on having made a fantastic speech today. At Congress, he got the Democrats to stand. I've never been able to do that. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. They liked him more than they've ever liked any Republican or Democrat. Actually, so I just want to thank you. And congratulations. It's not an easy thing to do. That's a tough place. It's a true privilege to have you here for this historic state visit. Last fall, Melania and I had the pleasure of visiting their majesties at Windsor Castle, a structure that's so beautiful and so long that it never seemed to end. I looked down as a former real estate person, and it just went on forever. And it was built by a gentleman named William the Conqueror in the year 1070. And I asked the king, I said, was he a nice man? William the Conqueror? He said, I tend to doubt it. I don't think so. When they call you William the Conqueror, generally speaking, you're not going to be too nice, but he must have been something, because it was nothing like I've ever seen. Windsor Castle. But tonight, in return, we're doing something that's very special, preparing to celebrate the 250th anniversary of our Declaration of Independence, a big time in our country. Very big time, and it's only natural that Americans begin this commemoration by paying tribute to the transcendent bond we share. Self-called our mother country used to go around saying this. Our mother country, how nice. From English towns and Scottish hills, from Welsh mountains and Irish villages, a people unique in history sailed across the mighty Atlantic to settle and civilize this continent. In the name of God. King and country so beautiful they called it New England, and meant that very, very literally the first Americans saw themselves as free men, carrying the forward and central liberties and ancient rights of the Anglo-Saxons into this new and beautiful world. In the eyes of America's founders, our War of Independence was fought not to reject this heritage, but to reclaim it and perfect it. As the founding father George Mason wrote, we claim nothing but the liberty and privileges of Englishmen. When we were in Great Britain, the Declaration of Independence was a miracle for revolution and self-government and human freedom. But even though the political bonds between the United States and Great Britain were dissolved, forever they thought on July 4th. 1776, the more powerful strands of memory, culture, and identity proved unbreakable in any conflict and grew into a friendship unlike any other on Earth. A very, very special and incredible friendship. Historians have noted that to this day, the distinct regions of the United States still echo with the particular accents, habits, and traditions of the British communities that first settled them centuries ago. The names of half of the original American states refer to members of the British royal family, as to American cities from Charleston to Annapolis, Shirley to Orbit, and even the place where I grew up and actually loved very much, Queens, New York. Who would have thought, but far beyond names and principles, there's something unique and very special that has always united our two people. A certain nobility of spirit and heroic soul, the same audacity that called a small island kingdom to rule the seven seas, and rule them you did, inspired the children of 13 American colonies to explore a great frontier and a very, very dangerous frontier, and settled what was known as the Wild, Wild West. The men who planted the American flag and the moon carried them, the same hunger for adventure and achievement as those who raised the Union Jack above Antarctica and first sailed St. George's Cross all around the globe. The American soldiers who crossed the Atlantic to freedom, rescue in 1944, were moved by the same keen sense of righteousness that drove the English Crusaders to the Holy Land 1,000 years ago. The entire world has been uplifted by this distinct and special character we share, this unstoppable daring, this unconquerable courage. It really is, it's unconquerable. And speaking of that, where's Rory McKell? Roy can stand up. Rory, that was unconquerable courage. That was very good, Rory. I don't know if that helps them talk about how wonderful the speech. But I had to interrupt my speech because I watched that man win a tournament. That was a tough one. Congratulations. Very proud of you. All right. Now I'll get back to my speech. That it was unconquerable courage, this inexhaustible supply of ambition, ingenuity, and resolve, from the trenches of World War I to the beaches of Normandy, from the frozen hills of Korea to the scorching sands of North Africa and the Middle East. And we're doing a little Middle East work right now, too, if you might know. And we're doing very well. We have militarily defeated that particular opponent. And we're never going to let that opponent ever also agrees with me even more than I do. We're never going to let that opponent have a nuclear weapon. They know that. And they've known it right now very powerfully. But our countries have stood together, defiant and triumphant against the forces of communism, fascism, and tyranny together. We have expanded the reaches of human knowledge and endeavored always to make this, in this world, safer, more prosperous, more just, and more free. Ours is a treasured friendship, an eternal bond and a true story of extraordinary heroism and skill. Lot of skill, tremendous skill, history is known. No more powerful force, combination of American patriotism and British pride. The British Empire that began here in America certainly did not end here. The sons and daughters of the British countries and spread more civilization than any nation before. They built an English-speaking world upon which the sun never sets, and provided an example to which free people will always turn. That always turned. They have such love and such respect today. Hey, most of Britain's former colonies have no idea what they truly owe to this towering legacy of law, liberty, and British custom that they were given. We were given that, and it was a great, great gift tonight. On the eve of our 250th year of cherished, burned embodiment of kingdom, for the richest inheritance that any nation has ever given to another, may our two countries stand together forever for liberty, for justice, and for the glory of God. Ladies and gentlemen, I offer a toast to 250 years of American freedom, and very importantly to a great man, His Majesty King Charles III. Thank you very much, Mr. President, First Lady. My wife and I are most grateful to you for your generous hospitality as the United States celebrates this very special anniversary, year of the Declaration of Independence. And may I also just start by paying tribute to your own courage and steadfastness, as well as to your security services for their swift actions on Saturday evening in preventing further injury. My thoughts and sympathies are very much with you, the First Lady, and all those guests for whom this must have been a very upsetting incident. As the words of that famous anthem remind us, this is the land of the free and home of the brave. As your own response demonstrates what used to be called in the last war in the United Kingdom, keep calm and carry on. I now realize this, gentlemen, to my amazement, that my first visit to this remarkable country was over 50 years ago. And, Mr. President, the golden threads of history and heritage between our lands are also embodied, as you mentioned earlier today, in your own family and your own family story, whose roots trace back to the beautiful landscapes of Britain's Outer Hebrides, and continue, as we know, in the great golf courses of the Highlands. I can only imagine the immense pride with which your own dear mother, indeed both your parents, must be looking down on the great office to which you have been elected for a historic second term. And if I may say so, it is a particular pleasure to be back in this wonderful building, the heart of your democracy. On this occasion, I cannot help noticing the readjustments to the East Wing. Mr. President, following your visit to Windsor Castle last year, and I'm sorry to say that we British, of course, made our own small attempt at real estate redevelopment of the White House in 1814. Anyway, I am so glad. We have an important opportunity at this critical time to renew those bonds of history and friendship between our nations and our peoples. 2.5 centuries ago, the United States of America was founded through an audacious and visionary act of self-determination. From the beginning, the American character has been defined by courage, tenacity, and the spirit of adventure as the direct descendant of King George III. I know this is a nation that never gives up, and my family's history remains reflected in your maps, which read rather like our Christmas card list across the ages. North and South Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, and the cities of Charleston, a particular favorite of mine, obviously. Georgetown, and for that matter, Georgia, Annapolis, as you mentioned, and further favorites, Prince William County and Williamsburg. This said, our French friends can feel equally at home with a glance at a map. Indeed, you recently commented, Mr. President, that if it were not for the United States, European countries would be speaking German. Dare I say that if it wasn't for us, you'd be speaking French. Of course, we both love our French cousins greatly. And we three estates are not only bound by our shared values, but by a profound belief that together, we are more than the sum of our parts. Out of the fires of a bitter and bloody revolutionary war, the triumph of the father of this country, George Washington and his fellow founders, was to forge a democracy founded upon the rights to liberty and the rule of law. The story of Britain and America is one of reconciliation, from adversaries to the closest of allies, not always perhaps following the straightest path. As you said yourself, Mr. President, during your own state visit at Windsor Castle last year, ours is an unbreakable bond of history and heritage, culture and commerce, industry and invention, and we are determined to face the future together. Tonight we are here to renew an indispensable alliance, which has long been a cornerstone of prosperity and security. For both British and American citizens, our people have fought and fallen together in defense of the values we cherish across the ocean. And from coast to coast, we have traded, innovated, and created together. We've stood together through the best and worst of times. However, the challenges we now face from those who wish us harm across the world, to balancing the risks and opportunities of powerful new technologies, to the threats to the very international rules that have allowed us to trade and have kept power in balance for 80 years, those challenges encourage us to reaffirm tonight the basis on which our partnership has been built. And yes, we have had our moments of difficulty, even in more recent history. When my mother visited in 1957, not the least of her tasks was to help put the special back into our relationship. After a crisis in the Middle East, nearly 70 years on, it is hard to imagine anything like that happening today, but it is not hard to see how important the relationship remains. In matters both seen and unseen, my mother's first Prime Minister, Sir Winston Churchill, understood this so well. But then he himself was half American, a tradition of shared transatlantic heritage, which I am pleased to say is alive and well in the White House today. Indeed, such was the closeness that Sir Winston, while staying here in the White House, in those rooms you showed us upstairs, emerged naked from the bathtub to discover the door opening. As President Roosevelt came in for a chat with rapier wit, the President cast aside any embarrassment by declaring that the Prime Minister has nothing to conceal from the President of the United States. This one came after testing times between our leaders in the early 1940s. The kinship and friendship of many centuries provided great reassurance to my late grandfather, King George VI, as it did to my late mother. It means every bit as much to me, of course. My late mother knew fewer than 13 serving presidents, thankfully all of them fully clothed. The first president I had the honor of meeting at the age of 10, in 1959 when he came to Balmoral, was President Eisenhower, who had served as Supreme Commander of the Allied Expeditionary Forces during World War II, at a most critical time in the darkest days of the 20th century. American leadership helped rebuild a shattered continent, playing a decisive role as a defender of freedom in Europe. We and I shall never forget that, nor at least not least as freedom is again under attack. Following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, today our partnerships in NATO and AUKUS deepen our technological and military cooperation and ensure that together we can meet the challenges of an increasingly complex and contested world. And speaking of submarine alliances, there was one particular Orca's predecessor, launched from a UK shipyard in 1944 that served for the majority of her life, attached to the 4th Submarine Squadron in Australia, playing a critical role during the war in the Pacific. Her name, HMS Trump, So tonight, Mr. President, I am delighted to present to you as a personal gift, the original bell, which hung on the conning tower of your valiant namesake. May it stand as a testimony to our nation's shared history and shining future. And should you ever need to get hold of us or just give us a ring, for 250 years, the ingenuity and imagination of the people of the United States have been an inspiration to the world. This land of opportunity has nourished some of humanity's greatest minds. From the industrial age to the space age, so many miracles of the modern world have been, and still are, invented in America. Indeed, we have followed the voyage of Artemis II, or Artemis II, as my family and I might like to call her, with close attention. Now I know you have big plans for the moon, Mr. President, but I've actually checked the papers, and I rather suspect it is already part of the Commonwealth, I'm afraid. Ladies and gentlemen, on this week's visit, I look forward to meeting the people and communities of this dynamic country, including celebrating some of the work of my King's Trust, which it has been doing in these communities, helpfully helping give young people a chance to succeed across America. In this year, when we mark 50 years of the Trust, can you believe it? Every year, millions of Britons journey to this remarkable country to experience its glorious national parks, soaring mountains and ancient forests, from the peaks of the Pacific Northwest to the rugged shores of the Atlantic. From the vast expanses of the West to the sweeping prairies and canyons, the natural beauty of this land is found in every corner and in sport. In just a few weeks, the United States and Canada will be among those to welcome the world as host of the FIFA World Cup. So in one sense, Mr. President, as heads of state, we are joint hosts. We call this game, by the way, football, Mr. President, and I can only say as the head of state of 5 competing countries, I will be watching the matches closely with great enthusiasm. After all, we always like favorable odds. So this city, Washington, D.C., is the home of more Shakespeare folios than anywhere in the world. 82 copies are carefully preserved and shared at the Folger Library, and at this time, when the search for peace in the world is more critical than ever, I can only turn to Shakespeare's genius to remind us of the plea for peace spoken by the Duke of Burgundy at the conclusion of Henry V. My speech entreats that I may know why gentle peace should not bless us with her former qualities. Thank you, Mr. President and Mrs. Trump, for your splendid dinner this evening, which, may I say, is a very considerable improvement on the Boston Tea Party. So whether your cup contains tea wine, Scotch whiskey bourbon, or even cola, let us raise our glasses and voices as we toast. The past, the present, and the future, thank you, of our 2 proud and allied nations, to the United States and the United Kingdom. God bless both our countries. Great job. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The applause lingered through the grand hall long after the final toast had been delivered. Crystal glasses reflected the warm glow of chandeliers while conversations resumed in quieter tones, yet beneath the ceremony, there was a deeper significance to what had just taken place. State dinners are often remembered for the photographs, the elegant surroundings, and the carefully choreographed moments designed for public consumption. But occasionally they become something more. Occasionally they become markers of history, moments when nations pause to reflect not only on where they have been, but on where they are going. For many watching around the world, this evening felt like one of those moments. The relationship between the United States and the United Kingdom has never been a simple story. It is a relationship built upon contradiction. One nation was born from a revolution against the other, yet over time they became each other's closest strategic partners. They fought a war against one another before fighting side by side in conflicts that would shape the modern world. Their histories are intertwined in ways that few international relationships can claim. That complexity was visible throughout the evening. President Trump spoke repeatedly about heritage and shared history. King Charles spoke of reconciliation, partnership, and common purpose. Different words, different styles, but both pointing toward the same reality, that the connection between these 2 nations has survived because it has continually adapted. History offers many examples of alliances that seemed permanent but eventually faded. Political interests change. Leaders come and go. Public opinion shifts.
My mother's first Prime Minister.
Yet the Anglo-American relationship has endured through world wars, economic crises, political disagreements, and dramatic changes in global power structures.
Transatlantic heritage.
Part of the reason lies in culture. Millions of Americans can trace their ancestry to Britain and Ireland. Millions of Britons feel a familiarity with American culture that goes far beyond politics. They watch the same films, listen to the same music, speak the same language, and often understand each other's humor in ways outsiders sometimes find difficult to follow. But culture alone cannot sustain an alliance. Interests matter too. As the 21st century grows increasingly complex, both countries face challenges that would have been almost unimaginable to earlier generations. Cybersecurity threats emerge from invisible networks rather than traditional battlefields. Artificial intelligence raises questions that governments around the world are struggling to answer. Economic competition is no longer limited to trade routes and manufacturing, but extends into data, technology, and innovation. Against that backdrop, the symbolism of this visit becomes clearer. King Charles arrived not simply as a monarch representing centuries of tradition, but as a head of state navigating a rapidly changing world. President Trump welcomed him not only as a royal guest, but as the representative of one of America's most important allies. Both men understand that history can be a source of strength, but history alone is not enough. Relationships survive because they continue to find relevance in the present. That may be why some of the most meaningful moments of the evening were not the grand declarations or the formal speeches. They were the small moments of humor and humanity, the references to family, the jokes about real estate, the stories about past leaders, the laughter shared across a banquet hall filled with diplomats, military leaders, business figures, and cultural representatives. Those moments served as reminders that international relationships are ultimately built by people. The special relationship has often been described in strategic terms. Analysts discuss military cooperation, intelligence sharing, trade agreements, and diplomatic coordination. All of those things matter. Yet beneath every treaty and every alliance stand individuals who decide whether trust will flourish or fade. Trust has always been the foundation. During World War II, trust enabled unprecedented cooperation between British and American forces. During the Cold War, trust helped sustain a united response to geopolitical threats. In the decades that followed, trust allowed both countries to coordinate responses to terrorism, financial instability, and global crises. That trust has not always been effortless. There have been disagreements. There have been moments of tension. Leaders on both sides of the Atlantic have occasionally found themselves pursuing different priorities. Yet the remarkable thing is not that disagreements occurred. The remarkable thing is that the relationship survived them. As the evening progressed, observers noted another important element of the occasion. This visit came during a period of significant personal challenge for King Charles himself. The monarch's ongoing health battle has been followed closely around the world. Public appearances have carried added significance because they represent not just constitutional duty, but personal determination. Every engagement, every speech, every state visit serves as a reminder of the resilience that has characterized much of his reign so far. That resilience was visible throughout the evening. Rather than focusing on personal circumstances, the king emphasized continuity, partnership, and optimism. His remarks projected confidence in the future while acknowledging the challenges of the present. For supporters of the monarchy, that message carried particular importance. The British royal family finds itself navigating one of the most scrutinized periods in its modern history. Questions about relevance, transparency, and public expectations continue to shape discussions about the institution's future. Every major public appearance is examined not only for what it reveals about current events, but also for what it suggests about the monarchy's long-term direction. This state visit therefore operated on multiple levels simultaneously. It was a diplomatic event. It was a cultural event. It was a symbolic event. And for the monarchy itself, it was another opportunity to demonstrate continuity during a period of considerable change. By the time the evening drew to a close, guests had witnessed more than a formal exchange of speeches. They had witnessed a reflection on history itself, how nations evolve, how relationships endure, and how institutions adapt to new realities without entirely abandoning their traditions. Outside the White House, the world continued to move at its usual pace. News cycles shifted, political debates continued, markets opened and closed. Social media moved on to its next topic of discussion. Yet moments like this have a way of lingering. Years from now, historians may look back on this visit as a routine diplomatic engagement, or they may view it as a significant marker during a period of global transition. That judgment will depend on events that have not yet unfolded. What is already clear, however, is that both nations remain deeply connected by a shared story that stretches across centuries, from revolution to reconciliation, from rivalry to alliance, from separate histories to a partnership that continues to influence global affairs. The speeches delivered that evening were not merely reflections on the past. They were statements about the future, a future that remains uncertain, as all futures do, but one in which both countries clearly intend to continue working together. And perhaps that is the enduring lesson of the night. History matters, tradition matters, but what matters most is the willingness to carry those things forward into a changing world. The guests eventually departed. The lights dimmed. The official photographs became part of the historical record. Yet the larger story continues. A story of two nations, two histories, two identities, bound together by a relationship that has survived wars, revolutions, crises, and generations of change. And as the doors of the White House closed behind the final guests, that story entered its next chapter.